We can start. Okay. Thank you so much. This privileged space in the science for the March of Science in week. Let me introduce myself. I am Darian Castro. I am a biologist and activist from Ecuador, a little country in South America. We have the privilege to have the influence in many ecosystems. In this case, we have the influence of the Andean mountain chain and the specially influence of the great ecosystems like the Amazon rainforest. That is a great deal for us, and it's a privilege to have that ecosystems and that biologic richness in our country. However, we have great problems around this country, and not only in my country, in a regional problem, a regional issue with the indigenous communities and marginalized communities too. The farming area in our country have a devastated situation because of the mining projects, but especially in the indigenous communities that have the possibility to show more about these things, like ethnic knowledge and scientific knowledge. That richness right now is suffer of the endangered situation because we have the opportunity to protect all about these resources, like the ethnic knowledge, cultural knowledge, and scientific knowledge too. We have our biodiversity, the most important in the region. We have a diversity of plants around the 650 in a little in a little territory, and that's amazing because we can show more about the pharmacological industry. We can give the opportunity to create medicines, but what happened with that? Don't exist that focus in the region. The only focus that exists is two: the mining projects and the oil industry. The oil industry devastated all of these things in the ecosystem and human rights in our indigenous communities, especially with the situation of the oil spills and fights against the oil industry companies and the indigenous communities. With the COVID-19 pandemic, we can see the consequences of the oil spills and the lack of water access for these communities. The water access is so important, and it's the main reason because we are fighting right now, because it's the only resource that can help to these communities to fight against this virus and this novel disease. However, one more time, these communities don't have the necessary to fight against these companies and to speak aloud to the governments and another instances. And it's so confusing for us because for us and for these indigenous leaders, it's so important to protect this incredible biological and cultural richness. Many languages in our communities uh, are in danger because if we don't do the necessary to protect them, these communities can lose in a future, in a long, on a short term too. Another situation with us is the government corruption in Latin America, but especially in South America. We suffer many consequences of the science, the need in this region. Presidents like a Bolsonaro that deny the existence of the climate change and the consequences of that in the poor countries. We have that rainforest that it's a privilege to live in that, but in the same time, it's so hard to protect this incredible treasure in our lands. What's our opportunity right now? Just promote and provide the information not only to another countries or even in the civilization in our cities and cosmopolitan cities. We need to promote and provide to the climate education, scientific education, and more access to develop all of these tools for our communities. What happened with right now with the medicine industry? We have a real fight against a virus, a lethal virus. We lost many people during the last year, and right now in this year, we still lost more people. But what happened with that? What's the need to the rest of the countries to fight against this pandemic? Obviously, the medicines. And what's the territory? What's the territories have that possibility to provide and all of these resources, natural resources, and chemical and molecular resources to fight against this incredible disease. Obviously, the rainforest and fragile ecosystems that are a hot spot of biodiversity, not only in South America. We can mention uh, another locations that have the same richness in their lands. Gabon in Africa and the southeast of Asia in Indonesia and Sri Lanka rainforest. Exists many richness around the world, especially with the biologic and scientific opportunities, not only for the pharmacological and scientific and research industry. It's a great opportunity to work together between the marginalized groups like the indigenous communities and give that participation to these groups. The human rights in our country are violated because don't exist a real protection of the governments in the region to these groups. It's very frustrating for me. It's very frustrating for thousands and thousands of indigenous people that right now want to say all of these things, but they can't. And it's very frustrating and it's so hard. But I think we can do it with the biotechnology, pharmacology, and scientific development in this region. It's time to start with the most important people in the poor countries like Ecuador, like Colombia, like Peru. and the rest of the countries in South America that need to protect their treasures in the lands, in their forests, in all of this diversity in animals and diversity in plants. We need to protect that. But especially, we need to protect the human rights of these incredible and magnificent indigenous communities that have the power to change this model, economical and political model, and fight against this uh, horrible disease together with the scientific community, with the academic community, with the medical community. It's time to promote all of these values from the marginalized groups. Yeah, I think that's the solution. And I think we need to protect all of us for the next generations. The sustainability exists, but many people don't care about that. We can see that in Brazil. We can see in another countries, development countries, like a USA, like a UK, like a China. We can see all of that because these powerful countries need to develop a success model in an economic approach. But what happened with the rest of the people? What happened with the people that don't have the access to vaccines, but have the potential to develop a new medicines to share not only with our communities, even with the rest of the humanity, with the rest of the communities and societies around the world? We can become a traditional and ancestral knowledge of these ethnic groups to a world heresy for the rest of the humanity and for the rest of the scientific community. I want to say something about that. I want to say something about the reality of my communities. Many people suffer a natural disasters like a floodings in the Amazon River. Right now suffer the lack of water access in the Andean communities because of the mining projects, because the money and the investment in this fossil fuels industry, it's more important to a benefit for the societies and the vulnerable groups like the Andean and Amazon communities. Thousands and thousands of gallons of oil was spilled the last year and continue suffer that detoxification in the water. Many people have disease as a consequences of the detoxification of water in the Napo River, in the Amazon River around the region. It's very important to protect that because all of these things that uh, we can do right now, it's the heresy for the next generations, and it's the heresy to the rest of the communities that are judge us for our actions and for our activities. It's time to protect our future, protect your future and the future of your family, the future of your friends. It's time to protect that. And that's the reason because I want to talk about that in this incredible space. I appreciate all these incredible space for us, for me, and for the rest people that will talk about that. In Ecuador, for example, we have the opportunity to develop new biomaterials to create a new industry, but we don't have enough funds. We don't have enough investment. The word commercial and market, it's so frustrating because it's not a free market. That is a lie. We can see that. Many people just manipulate all this economic system, the free market and the world market, for a benefits for themselves. But what happened with the innovation? What happened with biomaterials like nanocellulose from materials like a palms wood, or even another trees that can give us that resource like a nanocellulose to become in new materials like a prosthetics, like a new fibers for the industry, like a new method to fight against the pollution of water, the pollution of water for the mining and the plastics too. All that possibilities, it's the opportunity for us. It's the opportunity for all these incredible scientific community and so talented professionals in Latin America, because all of these goals that I mentioned right now, it's a errancy of all professionals, Ecuadorian scientifics, Ecuadorian students, Ecuadorian researchers. And in the same time, we can continue with the list, a large list around this beautiful region in South America. It's the moment to share our knowledge, share our richness, but a real richness, not the fossil fuels and mining and metallurgic mining. Now, that's the past. We need to build a new future together. And the next future, the next generation, need to live in a sustainability world, a sustainable world, a new methods, a new biotechnology advances to promote a benefit and a well-being for the rest generations. Thank you so much.